Hello and welcome to another lockdown learning session. My name is Paul Holland and we are here looking at German genders today. If you are a GCSE or an A-level pupil learning how to get to grips with what makes a noun in German masculine or feminine or neuter, well, what I've done here is I've put together a very basic skeletal structure for you to try and make sense of when you come across a noun, to work out whether or not it is masculine or feminine or neuter. And I've broken it down for each gender into, first of all, whether they are masculine by meaning. In other words, they have to be masculine because they mean the word for father, or they have to be feminine because it means the word for sister. Or the other way of working out whether they're masculine or feminine or neuter is looking at the form, the form, the appearance of the word, particularly how it ends. Okay, so if you look at the ending in particular, you often look at those last couple of letters on a German noun, which of course you'll recognize because it has a capital letter, of course, in German. So it has the capital letter, and then you look at the last few letters, and that will often give you another clue, as well as its meaning possibly, as to whether it falls into masculine, feminine or neuter. So let's have a look at these then, shall we? This is your first group. These are masculine nouns because of what they mean. So the obvious one to begin with is all men or male titles, male professions, and male animals. Okay, so here we've got just a few of them for you. And the second most common group of these sort of things as well is to do with time, actually. All the seasons are masculine, months are masculine, the days are all masculine. Even the times of the day are masculine, except for the word night, and that is die Nacht. I don't know why. It tends to be feminine in most of the Indo-European languages that I know of, generally is feminine. But there we go. So there we are. Im Januar. That would be in the month of, therefore masculine, January. Or you could say that was a cold January. Das war ein kalter, with the ER on the end because it's masculine. Ein kalter Januar. Makes of cars are generally masculine. Der Opel, der Volkswagen, der BMW, possibly because the word Wagen is masculine. Points to the compass, der Norden, and so therefore you'd say im Norden, okay, in the north, and that would be in dem for the dative because it's masculine, in dem Norden, im Norden. And apparently most types of stone are masculine, der Marmor, for example. I don't know when you'll need to use that in GCSE, but maybe if you're describing what a place looks like and you're describing the beautiful marble buildings, maybe that's what you'd say, but you'd use a masculine stone, der Marmor, der Granit. Let's have a look at these ones now. These are the endings which tell you that the word is going to be masculine. They're all quite similar, aren't they, for the masculine ones as well. So if you see Honig for honey, then that is definitely der Honig. I have a budgie. Ich habe einen, because it's masculine and accusative. Ich habe einen Wellensittich. And we can tell that from those last three letters. Good. Good. Okay, let's have a look at feminine nouns, shall we now? And these are the ways that feminine nouns are feminine by meaning. And of course, we begin with the obvious one, females, female titles, female jobs, and female animals, obviously. And the rivers in Germany are generally feminine, die Weser, die Donau, the river Thames in England, die Themse, although you could guess that by looking at the E on the end, possibly. But you've got some exceptions as well. Der Rhein, the most German of rivers, der Main, and you've got other rivers as well. Der Nil, for example, is masculine. So that doesn't always work, but if you're talking about where you visited in Germany or where your exchange partner lived, and you're using the name for the river, then it will be a feminine river, unless it's one of those two, der Rhein or der Main. And apparently planes and ships that are named after towns or countries are going to be feminine. Die Deutschland, the country itself is das Deutschland, yeah, it's Neuter, but it's die Deutschland for the name of the ship. And we see something slightly similar to this when we look at the newspaper, for example, Die Bild, which is the equivalent of the Sun newspaper, the tabloid. In Germany, Die Bild, not das Bild. The word das Bild means the picture, but die Bild, as a feminine word, is the newspaper. Again, presumably because it's Die Bild Zeitung, which is a feminine word, so maybe that's why it's Die Bild. We saw something similar with cars being masculine. We're going to move on now to feminine nouns by form. So again, you look at the ending and you can immediately say this is a feminine word. Almost every single noun that you come across which has an E on the end will be feminine. There we are. Look, the flower, die Blume, die Stimme, the voice, die Tasse, the cup. There are obviously some exceptions to this. The one that jumps to mind for me first of all is der Junge, the word for boy. But again, that by meaning is masculine, so therefore that fits into the first category that we looked at in this video. So by meaning it's masculine, so therefore it's masculine. Even though it has an E on the end, it looks feminine, but obviously it means boy. Der Junge. But most of the nouns with an E on the end in the singular will be feminine. And here's another group of very, very common endings. These are all typical German feminine endings. And these 5, if you have these on the end, then it's a feminine noun. Die Konditorei, the cake shop. Die Freiheit, your freedom. Freundschaft, friendship. Die Übung, exercise. Has UNG on the end, so that makes it feminine. Watch out with a couple of those. You might come across a word like der Schwung, the swing, meaning the movement of something. Der Schwung, the moving, the swinging of something. That comes from the verb schwingen, and that happens to be masculine. But most words which have several syllables will be feminine if they end in ung. And here is a group of endings. These are not German endings, these are foreign endings. You can see that they all come from foreign words, French or English or Latin, and they are all feminine by form. Again, there are a couple of exceptions to these. Pazifik and Atlantik are masculine because they are oceans, and the word Ozean is masculine. So der Pazifik, der Atlantik. And mosaic also is an exception to this. But apart from these, if you come across one of these endings, then they are feminine. For example, Eon at the end, Portion, a small portion, would be feminine. Eine kleine Portion, bitte. University, die Universität, die Natur, die Toleranz. And finally, here we are with neuter nouns, and let's begin with the neuter nouns by meaning. There's quite a few of these. We'll start with the first group, which a little bit like for masculine and for feminine, we had males and females, or male jobs and female jobs. What we've got with neuter is the young of humans and animals. So, for example, we've got the young of a cow is das Kalb, a calf, because in theory for the German language it hasn't yet become male or female, it's still a young thing. And that sounds a little bit strange to us because we've got the word now for child, das Kind, and the word for baby, das Baby. You'd presume that the parents would recognize by a certain age whether or not it was a male or a female, but actually when they're still young, they're just das, they're still neuter, which is a little bit strange, but that's how it works with German. And that actually extends, as you'll see later, to the word Mädchen. The word for girl is das Mädchen, although a lot of Germans sometimes are heard to say die Mädchen. But actually, strictly speaking, it's a neuter word, das Mädchen. Places seem to be neuter, so continents, countries, cities and towns. So if you talk about old Berlin, you'd say das alte Berlin. Okay, here's an interesting one. Verbal nouns. In German, you can take any verb and you can put a capital letter onto its infinitive, and that becomes a neuter noun. And it means the act of doing something. Das Schreiben, the act of writing, or the writing. Writing is a pleasure for me. Das Schreiben ist für mich ein Vergnügen, for example. You might not use them that often. You use some of them as words that have become incredibly common. For example, essen. Das Essen means food, but it comes from the verb essen, to eat, and it's become a noun, a verbal noun. So it's neuter, das Essen. Letters of the alphabet, they are neuter. So if you wanted to say that this word begins with a capital F, a large F, ein großes F. Or if you're saying the F is a capital, then you say das F ist groß. Fractions. All fractions are neuter. Das Drittel, das Viertel, das Fünftel. The only exception to this is Hälfte. That's feminine because it ends in an E. Die Hälfte, the half. So you might hear yourself saying something like the second half of the film, and that would be a feminine word. The second half, die zweite Hälfte des Films. And apparently metals. Metals are also neuter. Das Gold, das Silber, das Blei, das Kupfer. And we'll finish off now with neuter nouns, which are neuter by form. Let's begin with a thing that occurs at the beginning of a word for a change, and that is a GE. If you've got a capital GE at the front, then most of those, if they're not stressed, if the main stress of the word, the accent is somewhere in the middle of the word, then this unstressed G means that you've got a neuter noun. Das Gebirge, a range of mountains. Das Geschäft. Some of these words beginning with GE are collective nouns. So that word that I just showed you with Gebirge means a collection of mountains. So a mountain range. So you've got the word for building. Das Gebäude. They often end in an E as well. Das Gesicht. Your face. So now let's just have a look at the endings of neuter nouns. These are for German-looking endings. These are very typical German endings. We've come across the first one, chen. If you see that on the end of something, it's neuter, so das Mädchen. All of these, I think, are diminutives. They make something small. So we've come back to that idea of this is the young or the little versions of something. We do something similar in English as well. Sometimes we put kins on the end of a word, okay, to make it sound like a childish version. But actually, in German, if you see these endings, then you'll know that they are neuter. And finally, I've said most foreign nouns. Well, certainly lots and lots and lots of nouns that are foreign, that come in from English, will be neuter. Das Foto, das Museum. There are exceptions. You get them here and there. A CD is die CD, die email. There's a few other exceptions, but most of them that come from foreign languages that are imported will be neuter. Good. So there we go. That hopefully gives you a clear overview, at least a starting point as to how to make an educated guess, if you like, at whether a noun is going to be masculine or feminine or neuter. It's not easy, is it? English doesn't have any genders at all, really, and suddenly in German you're faced with 3 of them. Here's an overview of the whole thing, and if that helps and gives you a good starting point for you to develop your understanding of this aspect of German grammar, fantastic. That's great. I hope to see you in another session somewhere of lockdown learning. Have a look in my playlists and see if there are any other useful things that I've put out there which might be helpful for you. Thank you very much. Look forward to seeing you again, and goodbye.